Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Garden. This is Noob versus Pro, where Ledge,
A noob to drawing, is pitted against Vamp.
his pro artist husband. So, what are we doing today, Ledge?
You know, boxes can hold so many things.
Like other boxes.
Like other boxes. Like, how cool is that? Movies also have boxes. You need that box, but also that box needs to have some sort of artwork on it so that you can know what it is.
Take box, make it pretty.
We are going to be taking box arts from something that we enjoy and redesigning what that box art looks like.
You can go first.
All right.
3, 2, 1. So, I want to preface this by saying I did not share my sketches or anything like that because this is a painting. It's a painting that took me roughly 14 hours to do, so it goes a little bit fast. I'm working here on a value painting. This is something I learned from my mentor. He uses a bright orange. I tend to like painting in pink. It just makes it easier to not have to think about how light or dark something is with the color attached to it, because I can always change the color later.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's an additive form of painting. It's a lot of fun. This is how I mostly do stones and stuff like that. I don't paint everything in this way, but I did want to do a painting for this because of what I'm doing. So it's kind of hard to guess what I'm doing here, but what I'm actually doing is a box art for Resident Evil 2.
Ooh, the remake or the original?
I mean, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, the IP is still the same.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I really enjoy about Resident Evil is how they put the scares in front of you, and you have to go towards them anyway.
Oh, no. Yeah. They do.
And then one of the things in the original Resident Evil, and even the original Resident Evil 2, is the loading screens being the doors, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to focus on a door for this. I did a bunch of different sketches for them. I should actually have you pop them up while I'm talking about this in the edit. But I did a couple based on the idea of Claire and Leon, the main characters, being surrounded by zombies. I did a couple based on liquors, and I did a couple with a focus on one of the main characters. So I went with this one because I really liked the simplicity of it. I knew it wouldn't take me as much.
It wouldn't take you as much, but it still took you 14 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about painting, though, is painting takes a decent amount of time. And also, I took my sweet time with this. Like, yeah, I redid certain things. I wound up really going in and making things pop. I did a couple of things while I was in calls with people. So like I spent nearly a week just kind of noodling on this.
So I'm gonna mention something here because it's so interesting to me, because when I think of like splatter. When I think of like coloring something, I always think of like everything with its like base colors, or get everything colored at least even a little bit and then go back for the details. And here it's like you're just focusing on a small corner of a corner, and then you're doing magic here with your duplication, and you're being smart, and your wibbly wobbly tools to make it so that it looks slightly different.
Work smart, not hard.
And like it's just really interesting to me when like I think about that, because it's like, yeah, you don't really need everything colored before you work on something specific.
Yeah, and that's the difference between working in more of like the cell shade kind of way that you approach things and doing a more realistic painting like this. Is like the way that I work, I really try to make it so that I'm not getting bored of what I'm doing. you know, and it's really easy to get bored if you're doing things in steps. Like, oh, I have to color this whole entire piece, right?
Right.
And part of the reason why I did this in painting too is that you really cannot look at it as that because the entire piece is color. You don't do line art. You know, there's not a lot in terms of like pushing and pulling certain colors or anything like that.
Sure.
Like, it's all kind of, those steps all kind of blend into one. It's all one giant step.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's easier to just kind of walk away from it for a minute and kind of go, all right, I'm working on this square here, and now I'm bored of this square, so I'm gonna flip this and work on this square, you know?
Sure, yeah.
And like you can see, like I'm adding different color variations and stuff like that. Like I'm really trying to push the part that I'm working on because I'm finding it interesting. I haven't gotten bored of the thing that I'm doing.
Oh, you see that big old hand.
Yep.
Uh,
I'd move that later. I liked it in the middle, but like as I started to paint this, it felt too static to me.
sure.
So later on, you'll see me move it up to the corner. Also because like you can see in the sketch, I have like scratches going up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that it was running off the side, so I wanted to make it look more terrifying. And then, like, here I am just kind of playing with the proportions of the bricks and stuff like that, really
Right.
trying to make it look like they're even, like they were placed there, you know. And I'm just using the same brick that I already painted.
Yeah,
and,
you did a second one to kind of vary it up even further.
Yep, and just kind of melding them together. I'm using my liquify tool to move things. And obviously, this is one of the things that make digital art easier than traditional art, because you'd have to paint all of this,
Yeah.
you know, by hand with digital art. But you do it all with color fields in traditional art, you know? So,
Oh, this is cool.
like, it's kind of a horse apiece. It's really easy to get bogged down in detail when you're doing digital paintings.
I bet.
So... But yeah, this was a lot of fun to do. I spend a lot of time on these bricks, honestly, because that was me judging my distance, by the way, trying to make sure that it's even on both sides.
Well, the thing is, they wouldn't maybe necessarily be even.
No, they would because of structural things. This goes back to what I've talked to you about with the 5-minute expert aspects. Like if you're building something, your bricks are going to be even on either side of the door frame.
I guess in terms of like going to school and all of the schools having like the big white cinder block speckly bricks as the walls and stuff, I guess they were all pretty even in that regards. And like looking at, but like something as old as flagstones doesn't have that because they're like whatever rocks we happen to have.
Well, and also they've settled over time and things have cracked and things have broken down, but the RPD is...
These are like marble.
Yeah, these are marble slabs.
I think the RPD used to like...
It was a renovated art museum.
Was a renovated museum, and that's why it has all these secret passages like museums, quote unquote, air quotes are going crazy. Have.
Well, and that's kind of the thing about Resident Evil that also makes it very charming.
The magic of the...
It's a lot of, you have to suspend your disbelief,
Sure.
Oh, I had technical difficulties here. My OBS crashed, so I lost a section.
Damn you, OBS. Oh yeah, we've come a long way.
Rather than redo the piece that we missed, I just kind of decided to, like, you can see the portion that I refined. I just decided, you know what, this is going to be long enough anyway. I'm just going to show you guys what I'm going to do on this side instead of redoing and
driving myself nuts. Redo art what you've already completed.
Well, and this is the problem with recording things and having the urge to record things, is when you do have technical difficulties like that, it's gone. You know? That being said, though, like, you guys get the gist. Like, you can see what I did over there, over here. Like, it's the same process.
Right.
And I'm just, like, copying pieces that I like and blending them in and, you know, working smart, not hard, essentially, you know, reusing pieces, and
Yeah. You know, I see you like what the hell did
that's
you
my stamp tool. So
what
basically, I cloned that part that I liked and
what
just
the
made sure it was straight. Do
So that's a thing.
I need to
Okay.
teach you how to do that?
Well, now I know that it even exists. So, the f- but no, it's cool because like just by watching people do art, you can learn like those kinds of stupid tricks.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and you can see, like, I'm only using 3 different colors there. Like, I use a highlight and a shadow color, same as I would with a
mhm,
cell shade, just being more in depth and smudging things. So
sure.
it becomes more colors, but it's those 3 initial colors.
So when you do these, because we can't really, I guess I can see your brush. You have different brushes than I do, I imagine,
I have a
because
ton of
you've
brushes.
downloaded, and you just use a generic flat brush.
This is a hard round brush that I'm using for like 90% of this. I use a hard round brush and a soft round brush, which are default brushes. The
Hmm.
thing that I change is my opacity to them. So, like, I know that you hate working with opacities,
It's
but when you're
mm,
doing a painting, getting that subtle color change is so important.
mhm.
Like you saw there, like I did those bright things,
Lines. Yeah.
masked it, and then almost
Cool wood
completely got
grain.
rid of it away.
Yeah, cool wood grain, by the way,
Thank you.
because
And again, it's just those same 3 colors. It's the shadow color and the highlight color
yeah,
on top of that midtone.
that marble is really cool
Thank you.
already.
And I keep like shifting the color and stuff like that. Like no, I'm not happy with it. Yeah, okay, like
Do I want it green? Do I want it blue? Do I
yeah.
want it?
Well, right there, what I did was I added a green layer, and then
Yeah,
I hit it, and then erased some of it to have some of the blue come out to get more of that color variation.
sure.
Because that's just the kind of stuff that you do to make things look more realistic. If you
Mhm.
look at something in different lights, depending on how reflective it is, it will absorb or reflect certain lights back at you. So
Mm.
that's what's going on with marble.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is why I do everything on different layers, by the way, because like after I get this colored in for its silhouette, I'm just like, I don't like where this is.
Yeah, then you can easily move it.
Yep. And there I am playing with it, like, and then I can't see what's going on, so I fill in my background.
Oh, it's a creepy, crawly ceiling.
Fixing, yep, fixing the tangent. And that's the thing about liquors too, is that they are typically on the ceiling, and they're terrifying. They're one of the only monsters in Resident Evil that legitimately make me scream when they show up. So like, and like I just copied and pasted my scratches and then warped a couple of things so that I didn't have to redo it each time.
And
Then
think of how sharp and like firm, not firm, but hardy the fingernails on this thing must be to be able to tear through.
I was looking at the models that they made, the 1/8 models,
Oh,
and they're like made of bone. Like
yeah.
their claws are made of bone. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. But again, that's that highlight color that I'm using
Oh,
there.
that's
That's
cool.
that's the color of the marble. I just color picked it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that looks really good.
right. One of the things with my particular paintings that's a little bit different from what most other people do is my smudge tool is one that I modified. It's a flat brush smudge
I see
tool.
that it's kind of ovalier.
It's oval and it's got a little bit of a texture to it. So it blends like a flat brush would
Hmm.
in acrylic. And it makes me so happy. It adds so much depth to my paintings. So like,
That looks so cool.
thank you. I a lot of what goes into doing digital painting and getting to a level of being a professional artist is finding what tools you like that make your art work for you.
Mm,
Like everybody has access to the same tools, but it's what makes your art unique and what shines with your style that makes things more interesting.
sure.
So I've done a lot of playing around with that type of stuff. You know, in my mentorship, I learned a lot about painting techniques. Just kind of playing around after the fact, knowing what I was doing. Like, a lot of what I learned about putting together textures came from that mentorship. But, like, being able to figure out the painting styles that get me to that result is what I've kind of developed over time. So,
You know, you mentioned that a friend, you showed off this piece to a friend before I even got to see the final outcome or anything. And you said that they mentioned that it looked 3D, and like the gouges, those are probably currently my favorite part of this. Like, those gouges are so cool.
so
Because, like, you see it, because, like, thinking about it, too, if I'm, like, scratching something, your fingernails are catching and kind of making micro jumps and bumps
Yep.
in it, and you see that, and, like, I wouldn't have even thought
well, and
to-
also when you just scratch a surface, it does a really light color scratch because it's only like it's only catching the light. It's not giving any shadow
Yeah.
because it's not deep enough. And that just comes from visual library stuff, you know, looking at things that have actually been scratched, looking at stones
Yeah.
and see how they react to being scratched or gouged, those types of things.
Yeah, but, like, no, those little, like, outcroppings in it that make it look like it's actually, like, catching and, like, having small
Yeah, it's
jumps.
not like an even.
It's not just, like, scooping butter kind of thing.
Yeah, it's giving you the idea of the friction that
Yeah,
nail is
that's
going.
So,
So my favorite parts of this painting are the gouges, and also I have a soft spot for metal. Metal is one of my favorite things to render, and there's metal on the door. So I did a doorknob, and I also did the spade on the spade doors, and those are my favorite parts of this painting. This is actually my first time ever rendering something organic material, like muscles. Yeah. So,
That's
like,
right.
because as much as I enjoy horror, I don't draw gore, like, ever. I draw blood sometimes for vampires and stuff like that, but I don't draw a lot of gore. So this was a really interesting challenge for me, too. Because, like, I had to really think about how muscles look in the light. And that was uncomfortable.
Well, couldn't you have just looked up some Attack on Titan?
Oh, I was just looking at the liquor references. I didn't actually look
Oh.
up like real muscles or anything like that.
That'd be just gross.
I mean, that's what you have to do and stuff like this, though. Here you
slick.
can see
Ooh.
that went really fast, but I did an adjustment layer and I set it to overlay. So an adjustment layer is basically copying the layer below and doing a change to it that doesn't actually change the real layer.
Okay.
So it's working non-destructively.
Yeah, okay.
So I took that layer, I shifted it to red, and then I set it to overlay so that
Now
it got
it's
that dark,
Really
almost
pretty.
purpley color.
Yeah.
And if you look at screenshots from the game, that's really what it looks like. Like, it's this really deep, dark mahogany style wood. And I wanted to get that feel.
Imagine that, like, unpainted wood.
Oh, I was checking my values there.
But I imagine that unpainted wood is something that's, like, so frustrating to try and, like, actually make very accurate.
Not really.
Because, like, just looking at our...
Just to
yeah, I
skip,
saw that you skipped that.
I skipped doing the sketch. You guys didn't need to watch me spend 40 minutes on getting that sketch done. So
Sure. Oh, that's a very pretty, very clean handle.
well, I mean,
Knob.
you know that line art is like my favorite thing ever to do.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time on it.
I feel like that's kind of one of my things that I struggle with, like, with looking at and doing objects and stuff, is that, like, trying so hard to make it perfectly round or perfectly perfect.
When
but
nothing is.
in reality, yeah, there's going to be, like, dents and dings and scratches and stuff all over those things.
It is a good instinct to start with things that are perfectly square or round or whatever, because you add those dings and stuff later.
Because, like, even with things that are perfectly straight, like doors or something, like when I did the fish tank
Mhm.
for the Mimic episode, like, a fish tank is literally straight lines. It
Yeah.
cannot be not straight lines, or
Right.
else your fish tank is broken.
But then also, if
it-
you're turning it in perspective, then your lines are going to converge just slightly. So.
Yeah, but like even though it was something, and like with this door, yes, the door better be straight, or else
Right.
it's not gonna catch right. It's not gonna close right.
Well, you notice in my starting things, like I'm literally just working with simple shapes,
Yeah.
right? I'm just working with squares. It's annoying because I'm doing squares in perspective, so I have to warp and move and
Wiggle them.
yeah, but like it still makes sense.
But like sometimes when I do that though, it looks like too pristine of a line, and then it just doesn't look real anymore. And I don't like that because it's like it's supposed to be straight. A fish tank is that pristinely straight.
Right.
Why does it look wrong?
Because things aren't like that. Like when you look at your actual fish tank, you can see dings and stuff like that in it. You know, you can see the little imperfections, the bubbles in the corners and stuff like that. So like the idea to start with a primitive shape, like go with your perfectly straight lines and then come back in and add those little details, ugly it up. There's a reason why people who first start with digital painting, their stuff looks too plasticky, too pristine, and it's got a little bit of uncanny valley. And that's because you spend so much time trying to get the thing, you know, perfect that you forget to ugly it up in order to make it look more real.
Yeah, and I feel like doors and things like that are some of the offenders for me to be like, oh, but it looks too like.
So in case you missed that, I just copied, I highlighted the shape, copied it, and filled it with my regular color, my mid-tone color, and just moved it. That's how I did that.
Okay.
Really easy way to get a shadow.
Yeah, right?
And I moved that down because I moved the thing down.
But I was saying, like, wood must be really frustrating because, like, just looking at our actual door and the frames around our windows and the dresser over there that is, like, this same color, honestly. Like, there is so much wood grain and patterning that are in those things realistically that, like, it feels like it would take so long to, like, render out, plan, or try to even put into.
That's the thing. You need to... That's where artistry comes in. You need to pick where you want your focus. Since my focus is the hand and not the door, I actually don't put a ton of wood grain into this.
Yeah.
I do have some bits of wood grain. Very, very, like, subtle.
Yeah.
And right now I don't have any in the door frame or the door. I don't think I put any at all in the door because I wanted the details to focus on the spade and the hand. So, like, most of my wood grain detail is almost not even there. And you saw how I did it earlier with just 2 lines and then fading it back. So I literally later on just kind of do that in one section and then copy and paste it in a couple of areas and blur out a couple of the edges so that it doesn't look samey.
Sure.
But like it does give the illusion of, you know, a little bit of that wood grain in the midtones. So we're not even working in real color yet. Like,
I know, but it's just kind of like thinking about how this thing doesn't have flesh.
well, this is the flesh.
It's
because I was looking at it and it's all just like ribboned flesh on its hands, and it's just like ugh.
Because I think the lore of the liquor is that they're a cross between like a salamander.
Yep, they're a salamander and a human.
It's just kind of like, okay. Umbrella scientists. What the fuck?
They don't know.
What? Why this combination of sequencing? What was the end game?
Bioweapon. Alright, so there I just changed it to a bone white, and that is going to stay that color. That's pretty much done.
Oh, wow.
Because now I'm going to be going underneath it in a new layer and doing the musculature.
Yeah, with like the weird reddish.
Yep.
Ugh. Oh.
And this is all just using a low opacity, medium density hard round brush. Like it's just stock brush that I've modified a little bit with its opacity and flow, and it's building up on that tone so that I can't go above. You see where my
That looks so good. Oh man.
already right? You see where my value range is? It's right above middle on the
Okay.
color that I'm using. I can't go above that amount, but I start very, very low. So like it gives me a limited value range when I paint like this. So then I can kind of go as like I can stay limited, but I can still get the shadows very in depth. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like painting this way. It's a hard method to really get used to. And I still wouldn't say that I'm a master at it at all, but like I definitely am happy with working this way.
So one of the problems with doing stuff with opacity is that if you were to go underneath, and because like I see you're leaving like some space in the black
Yep.
between the stuff, like if you get too close and go underneath it, is that pink then gonna shine through on some of that white?
Very small amounts in the darkest areas of white. So like the reason why I didn't go through, I realistically could have gone through because skin is translucent and you would see a little bit of that red through normal skin, but because this is dead skin, I wanted it to really keep that white color
Yeah.
to it. So I was careful not to go through, and then also that just kind of naturally gives me my shadow lines. So yeah.
You know, looking at this, like in game, you never really get a good glimpse of like the hands. Like they're the most dangerous part of the liquor, but you never really get a good look at them. But now that I'm like looking at the way that you've drawn it, I can definitely see lizardy grossness.
Yeah, it's that
In
kind
it,
of it's
because-
the four toes with the long claws.
I thought they had a thumb.
Yeah, it's three claws and then a thumb, but the way that their hand is,
I thought they had 4 fingers and a thumb.
no, they have four.
See the. Oh god, I didn't know that it was gonna go so red. Just looking at my hand and look up and suddenly blam.
I'm using the same
That's so.
I'm using the same pink that I was using as a highlight here because it worked very well.
So wet.
Yep.
Oh, that's so gross. Oh, that looks so good. Wow.
I'm so proud of it. It's so nasty though.
Oh, yeah. You toned down the shine a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, now that you shifted that color, like the added black adds to it
Yeah.
a lot more.
It looks like the actual muscle striations that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen real muscle. That's what the pictures and the science books all show.
I mean, yeah, I haven't seen real muscle either. That's a lie. I'm a weirdo and have seen like autopsies and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like
I never went and saw autopsies during school and stuff. There was options to.
there was a period of time where I did want to be a mortician, so I would like actively look out for like videos and stuff like that. So
Right. And this was before like a lot of that stuff was a lot more easily accessible. Too.
exactly.
But
Using my same trick of just copying the thing and
right.
moving it.
I don't like that our upstairs doors are this style of door.
Does it scare you?
Now that I'm like realizing that these doors look like that, like
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at a screenshot from the game to
yeah,
design the door, so
this is just the bedroom door.
No, it's not. We don't have a spade on our door. We're safe.
We do have a typewriter.
We do.
We do have a typewriter down here.
Typewriter in our living room.
It's our safe room.
Safe room, yeah. And I'm just adding a little bit of color variation here. You know, really light and loose.
Jeez.
It doesn't take much when you're doing something that's not in focus.
Yeah. Something about the top of the door looks a little odd to me. Oh. Someone is playing a game.
Yep. Probably because it's blending just a little bit into that door frame.
Yeah.
And here I am doing that that kind of wood grain aspect, super subtle. You are so grossed out by that.
It just looks that good that it's just like, ew, it's wet and like...
I could have done better with it, but I'm pretty proud of it considering it was my first time ever doing something like that.
Yeah, it's just...
I started to trace it, and then I was like, why am I going to work like that? Work smart, not hard. And then just copied my line work that I did.
Oh.
And filled it in.
That is a very pretty pattern.
Thank you.
Like, if somebody were to, like, make those kinds of doorknobs and...
I did it with a
fancy
symmetry tool. Like,
embellishment.
I did hand draw it, but I did it with the symmetry tool to make it a little bit easier on me.
Well, yeah, when they're supposed to be so symmetrical that it's like, why wouldn't you use that?
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, if there was an actual metal worker out there, like, that made these kinds of door embellishments,
right?
Like, how cool would that be to make it?
Oh, I'm sure somebody's made these before.
Oh, I hope so. Like, if you have the skill and the talent, like, that would be so cool.
So the thing about painting metal is that it's a high key, which means that there's a large space between... not singing.
It's a high key.
There's a large space between your brightest bright and your darkest dark in the same kind of frame based on where the light is hitting.
So it's much more extreme ends rather than metal ends.
And that's what makes metal so fun to do for me, because like you get to really push it and make it super saturated and cool.
Yeah.
And I'm working in like oranges and, you know, middle yellows. There's a little bit of gold and copper. I was going for a brass look, which I think I got pretty well here. I was pretty happy with it.
I always get confused between brasses, bronzes, and golds. Like,
so
it's a different register of like
brass and bronze are both very gold toned. Bronze has a lot of copper into it, so it goes more orange.
Because when I hear brass, I try to think of like, okay, a trumpet or a tuba.
Exactly.
And a trombone. But then those, like, when I like think about that, I also think, but those are like really, really gold.
Yeah, because the colors are very similar, but they're made with a different metal.
Yeah.
So, and here I am dirtying it up a little bit.
Yeah, the way that the lines just like disappear, but you still see them.
Yep.
The depth, it's called depths. But, like, jeez, like, where did it go?
I painted over it.
Just looks so cool. Oh yeah, you need the... Well, no, you don't need a lock, because it has its own lock in the...
Well, this is a spade door, so it...
I thought the lock was in, like, a skeletal key in that it goes into the spot at the bottom.
No. It goes into the handle.
Really?
In the remake, yeah. At least according to the screenshot that I had, it had a lock on it, so...
I could have sworn that it was... They modernized.
And I mean, granted, I was looking at a screenshot still, so it might have been.
Yeah.
I might have misread what I was looking at. But...
No, you're probably right. I just, like, for some reason in my brain, it's like, oh no, it's a skeleton key. So it would have, similar to our literal bedroom door,
Yeah.
of having a skeleton. Oh, wow, that's so blue.
This was a lot of fun to do.
It's so bright compared to everything else.
Yeah, it draws your attention. Well, and that's because it looks like stained glass. It's probably actually enamel, which is a very reflective, very bright surface. So,
right.
And then I pulled it back a bit to match the other values.
Ah!
Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just punching my highlights and shadows a bit.
Don't punch the fuck. Ooh.
Yeah, making it more mysterious and kind of just that creepy Resident Evil factor.
Ah, it's like a light shining on the...
Yeah, because if you think about this area, so this is in the lobby, right? There's overhead lights.
I do like that shadowing that you added at the very end. I wouldn't have even thought of doing something like that because I would have been like, it's done!
When you kind of put your ego aside of like, oh man, I'm super proud of how this goes, and just kind of look and be like, you know, I could really push this a little bit more to get a certain feel, then, you know, it tends to make it so that your piece shines a lot better.
Yeah.
I did not make the Resident Evil 2
logo.
Yeah, I just copied it. But,
Resident Evil 2.
There's a couple of things I probably could have pushed a little bit more and spent a little bit more time on, but I'm really proud of this.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is so cool. I love it. It scares me.
Well, thank you. All right, let me stop blabbing about this.
Yeah, you're yapping. Woo!
I am. Let me see what you did.
All right. So I'm excited to show you mine because I think you're going to be surprised. Whether that is good surprise or bad surprise, I don't know. But anyways, let's go right on into it and I'll talk about it. So 3, 2, 1. So, I don't know if anybody watching will know this short film, but from my childhood, there was a movie or a VHS that we have that I still have called Ricky Tikki Tavi. It's essentially the story of some British family in India at like the turn of the century India kind of thing. So I think the British like invaded.
I like how you very rudimentarily implemented this perspective here.
But it's about this British family that moved to India and they run across a mongoose. And in this area of India, there are also very venomous cobras and snakes. And they're basically encroaching in on these creatures' habitats, right? Mm-hmm. So the snakes are pissed because the humans basically built their house on top of where they're having a nest. Okay. So they feel threatened, and they're like, all right, we're going to go and kill the humans so that our babies are safe.
Right.
And they're labeled as the villains of the story, and the mongoose befriends the little boy of the humans, and... if you know anything about mongoose, or if you know anything about Zangoose and Seviper from Pokemon, they are like feuding creatures.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Mongooses kill cobras, because mongooses have like natural resistance to cobra venom. They can definitely still get like destroyed and killed by a cobra, but they're more resistant and they're less likely to actually get killed by them.
Right.
I think the name...
I like this chunky brush that you're using.
Yeah, I forget what... It's just a textured pen. It says right up there, textured pen. And I found it, and I was like, okay, I want to try something a little less, like, solid lines, and a little bit more free-flowing kind of thing, and messy.
Right.
So this is Ricky Tikki Tavi. I believe that was his name that the little kid gave him. And it's so stupid because, like, it acts like a squirrel and it acts like it's this kid's best friend and, like, nuzzles up to it. And it's a wild ass animal.
Right.
So it's already just stupid to begin with. But it's part of, like, the Jungle Book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let me get the VHS right here. It says right on it, based on a Rudyard Kipling story from the Jungle Book.
Okay.
So it's like a part of it. Yeah. So the actual box art, we'll more than likely show it if we can find it. I'll take a picture if we can't. Has a little British kid with the mongoose just kind of like perched on his shoulder, and the kid kind of looking at it like, what the fuck? And like weird.
Kid has prominent duck lips.
But like the background is like forested area, kind of jungly and like ruins type situation. So I found some pictures of like kind of like artwork and pieces things that are India to kind of reference for the big area in the back there.
Right.
That I just kind of have going off into nothingness.
This is a really good attempt. I think
And this was again me wanting to try to challenge myself with using like actual references, but also
Right.
not trying to like go straight from references.
I think again something that would have helped you with this is if you had actually taken a couple of minutes to put a perspective grid down.
Gross.
I know you just
No.
want to jump straight into the drawing, but yeah, because this looks really good, but there are definitely some perspective things that are off.
You think? No, there's tons of perspective things that are off, like especially on the left-hand side. The right-hand side, I think, eventually looks a little bit nice, but the right-hand side, I just kind of go,
I like what you're doing with this tree here.
So I ended up painting this instead of doing line work,
I see this.
and I used the gouache brush throughout it. I didn't mess with any of the settings other than the brush size, so
The gouache brush is a good brush. It's got this cool chunky texture, and it does have a little bit of transparency to it already. You can kind of see.
I was fighting with that so much because I didn't press hard enough to the point where it actually like laid down enough, and then I tried to fill in with other colors, but it just wouldn't cover the canvas where I wanted it to. So I was like, why are you doing this?
Right.
And I realized that the sky needs to be a color.
Well, hey, you're thinking about backgrounds.
I know. And so I again went back to actual artwork pieces of India to kind of see like what are the colors that they're using, what are some of the aspects, and like what's the sky look like there? Are there clouds and stuff? Meow. And like tried to get this idea of these buildings, and it's not just like there has to be some sort of plant matter and stuff around if cobras are an issue because
Oh, yeah.
they live in the plants and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
they hide in dead leaves and
So I didn't like how barren everything was to make it look like, oh, it's just this inhabited street
right.
type thing happening. So I wanted to add in additional plants and more life. I
Yeah,
guess.
it's looking really great. Something to think about when you are painting like this is try to work from the back forward.
Yeah, I realized that after I did that main front tree, I was like, oh no,
I kind
I
of
should
figured
be.
that's what happened. Because like because you're working with a transparent brush, you've got a little bit of your sky color kind of coming through these other colors,
Mhm.
and then it stops after a certain point, you know.
Right.
But
But No, I went very rudimentary with the background
Hey,
because
it's still more than what you've done, and this is looking really good. I'm surprised that you tried a painting. This is really cool.
that's why I was like, I want to show it off. And like, you're either gonna be like super impressed or you're gonna go, "Oh, you tried." And I think it's a little bit of, "Oh, you tried."
I mean, it's always going to be a bit of both because you're still learning, you know? Like,
Hmm.
and I tease you all the time about how you don't let me teach you. But like, that's okay. You know, we'll get to a point of where I'm actually teaching you things. I think you're picking up a lot of stuff just naturally, and this looks great.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the ways that I've learned in my life on doing anything is by watching and then later implementing it myself. Um, so that seems like it works for me, like sitting down and being taught stuff, like physically, like, okay, this is what I'm teaching you is a lot harder for me to deal with.
Right. But there are certain things that you're not going to be able to learn just by watching. Like, there are certain things that you will need to, sit down and actually study.
Hmm.
Um, but if that does work for you, we can start doing a format where, like, I paint something and then you try and do something in a similar vein or something
Yeah.
like that. And that's kind of, I guess, what we are doing now because you're taking things that you watch me do in previous episodes and
Hmm.
implementing them in newer ones.
Exactly. And you know, when I was looking at a lot of the pieces and artwork that I was kind of taking inspiration from for the area, it it was always so bleak feeling and so barren of and devoid of color
Right. I
that
mean, part of that is also because of the time period you're looking at.
yeah. But like and that's why I put those like little um baskets of
Fruit.
food and fruit and stuff because it was just kind of like, you know, it's I need something more here. I need there to be more color. But this is where I was like, all right, let's try to make this creature look furry and soft in ways. And what? How do we do this? And the lines are kind of situational.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a style that, a decent amount of people use. Like some people will do straight paintings, some people will implement, line work into their painting. It all basically comes down to what you enjoy in your
Hmm.
work. Um,
Because then I took away the lines and I went, oh no. Oh dear, we need to fill these things in
yep,
and balance it out, and uh oh.
that's the hard thing. See, when I paint over line work, I never hide my line work because I'm going after the shapes, And I also like when I'm doing paintings, I don't do line work first. I stay with my sketch because my refining always comes in the painting section.
Hmm.
Why am I going to spend triple the amount of time doing line work if
Well, initially I was gonna actually not do this.
Oh yeah, no, I
So,
I I get that. I'm not saying like you did something wrong or something like that at all. I think this is really cool. And I'm glad that you challenged yourself with a painting style. I think this is neat. Um, definitely not what I expected from you.
right? Yeah, and that's what I try to do with
You're
some of
kind of
these. Sometimes I
kind of
go,
pixel fucking here a bit.
yeah, because I could see the red through the I could see the red through the teeth and I didn't want that.
Yeah,
And like I was coming across these issues of all of this unpainted section, so it was like, how do I make this not do this?
hmm something that would help if you like the squash brush and the texture that it does would be to just fill in a color underneath and then do your gouache color on top because then the little like dry spots
Mm-hmm.
will reflect the color that's underneath your base color.
Right.
So, um,
Yeah, and the snake proved to be frustrating because I did like the dots, and I really liked the dots in that other brush. But then I did those on a different
I
layer.
actually just recently screenshotted a tutorial that somebody put up on LinkedIn about snake scales. I should send it to you.
Oh, I don't think I'm gonna do a snake again in a long time, so it'll be.
I mean, it depends on what you want to draw, But yeah, I think this looks really nice. You've got some nice subtle color variations. I think your color variations might be a little bit too subtle. They kind of blend into each other into one flat color when you zoom out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's neither here nor there. Like, this is really neat.
Yep. And I give a little bit of the background a little bit more focus again, trying to think of, okay, well, if this is an overhang, this would be a darker color than the part above it, and the little alleyway in the back there.
Yep, trying to get those shadows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this. This is considering you didn't do any form of perspective and just kind of scribbled in those
Eyeballed the perspective.
Yeah.
Yep. Generally lowering in the height because they're farther away if they were the same height.
Yeah, and I mean that's a lot of the fundamentals does come partially from observing, and that's something that you can just kind of see looking down a street.
Mm-hmm.
As you move further back in space, things look smaller and they get less detailed. And that is a big part of this is a pretty color. That is a big part of learning perspective, is knowing that. But a lot of perspective, it comes down to math, and math sucks. So
The thing about the Cobra was that the color shifted so much
from
was from white backed with the black patterning and specks to this gray to there were portions of brown in it, and I was just kind of I cannot tell what color this fucking snake is.
Mm-hmm.
To where I just kind of threw in a whole bunch of different colors.
Color is very complex, and a lot of what it comes down to is figuring out how the shadows are shifting that color, and breaking it down to as few colors as humanly possible. So, I mean, you saw with mine how I literally used 3 colors for most of it, if that, and then just shifted it at the end.
Yeah. And I was having such a hard time getting it to work and getting it into the position that I wanted it. I was so confused by my layers at one point that I kept painting on the wrong layer, and then I was just God dang it.
The struggle is real.
Because I really did like those spots the way that they were because of the shape of the brush that did it previously.
Right.
But I couldn't really realistically keep it because it would look so different.
Yeah.
I felt from the rest of it. But
well, and also this snake looks entirely smooth.
Yeah, well, guess what? It's gonna have to stay that way.
That's okay. I'll teach you how to paint scales. It's actually really easy once you kind of. Well, you tried. That's not bad.
Yeah, I add a lot more to it because then I started looking at it okay, there are different colored scales. There were white pieces, there were black pieces, there were gray pieces. There was an underbelly here that I was okay, there's also underbelly right over this area. And the head, I just gave up. I was I don't understand how to make this head look like a head because of the angle that I did it at.
It's a cobra. Cobras have
dumb heads.
Well, their heads kind of blend into their hoods. And,
this is a point where I was alright, I'm gonna make this one of those railings that have, the, open railing type things so that you can see through it, and I was gonna have the kid's head poking through and watching the fight kind of situation here. But then I was I don't want to do that, because that means I have to consider what the background looks like through those railings, and
Yep.
I'm not down for that.
Well, and see, the easy way to do that would be to have the railing on its own layer and have your background already rendered to that point.
I
And
didn't, so I didn't want to do that.
Well, and these are things to keep in mind for the next time that you do a background.
Yep.
Because, like, work smart, not hard, you know?
But
this is awesome.
Instead, I made it a low wall type thing. It was meant to be more of a rounded railing up top, but I think it was a little bit too thick to really come off as that. But
I like all the color variation that you have going on in the wall. Like, you've got reds and oranges and like browns coming through. And there's like 15 different greens happening in this grass. Like, that is really cool. I can tell that you put a lot of thought into this.
And then I was like, oh, maybe there would be shadow where they're actually standing.
Yeah, who
cares where the sun is coming from?
Your shadow work, I need to actually sit you down and be like, all right, this is how you figure out light sources.
Well, no, you've told me how to do light sources before. I just don't care.
You make my heart hurt so bad. There's certain things that you do so well, and then it's just like you fart all over it. Oh, this is neat.
Yeah, I figured, if there really was grass here, it wouldn't just fucking not grow against the wall.
Yeah.
So I think I overdo the grass a bit.
A lot of this,
wall,
a lot of this is not simplifying your shapes, because grass grows in clumps, right? So it would be a lot easier to just make a larger clump and then erase a couple of things away to make it look like individual things. A lot of what painting comes down to is being simple and then refining. A lot of painting is just the door. That's what I was hearing this morning. Oh, I like this dome.
Basement. That's what you were hearing.
What?
Yeah. He was scratching against the basement door. I'm sorry. Continue.
It's okay.
My goofy dome.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, that was like originally the original thought for this piece was I was going to have this dome in the background, and that was going to be like the house or whatever, but then it kind of shifted and changed, and I didn't like how see-through this tree was.
Yeah.
Again, so I went back over it with a different brown rather than the darker grayish.
Well, and again, like, if you start with a shape that you like in a solid color and then use this translucent thing over top, then you'll still get that color variation in the stuff that you really like with that brush.
Right.
But you'll be able to stick to your shape a lot better. And you won't have, see-through things that you don't want see-through.
Yep. And because I did these things so early on without, like, putting a lot of pressure on, I had to redo some of the tree and stuff, so adding a bit more color. And then at one point I did kind of consider, okay, so if the up top parts are going to be a little bit brighter greens and maybe yellows,
yep, because of the sunlight,
the lower parts are going to be a little bit more darker.
Yep.
So
and again, that would be a little bit more focused with your light direction. Another thing, so this is a little bit more of an advanced technique, but if you've noticed, when I do landscapes, as you move further back in space, things take on a blue cast. It's called atmospheric perspective. So the further away that you get from the camera, the less bright things get, the more they kind of take on the same tone as the background.
Yep.
So,
and now this is here the final bit of it, putting in the title
nice
of Ricky Tikki Tavi. And I realized, oh no, where did your eyes go? Because they were drawn in on a different layer.
Yep.
And so she's like, there we go.
Nice. I mean, you keep saying, "Oh, this is a you tried star," but I think you actively like legitimately did well with this. This is not anything that I expected from you because, like, for one, you've told me that you don't like doing things without line work, and for another, like, this is I don't think I've ever seen you try to do a background. If I have, it was a long time ago, and it it wasn't finished.
And the funny thing is, in total, this was maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, I think you should be proud of this.
Like I did tree before. Like that's what the logo is
Yeah.
a big tree. And there were points in that where I was like, I don't understand where you can see the branches. Like it doesn't make sense to me. But in this one, like yeah, there are points where you do see the branches among the leaves,
And
it makes sense.
isn't it interesting how, like, if you think back to when you approached the logo, how did you approach it? You approached it as, okay, I'm drawing a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Here you went, okay, I've got to get the base shape of my bark down, and then I can put my leaves on top,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's just that slight shift in thinking about how things are constructed that make it look so much more realistic when you're drawing it.
Right.
So, yeah, great job.
Thank you. There we have it. Box
Yeah.
art. Beautiful box
Beautiful
art.
box art.
If you have not ever watched Ricky Tikki Tavi, maybe don't. It's a kid's movie, but I'm sure it's aged poorly.
Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with us. We hope that you are taking care of yourselves, drink your water, do what you can. If you liked this, like and subscribe. We do stuff like this every other Friday.
Yeah.
Check out the Patreon. All sorts of fun stuff on the Patreon. So thank you, and bye, everybody.
Bye!